Hey there, Cyber Warriors. My name is Lane McCall, and in this episode of Cyber Nation, I'm going to show you how to connect to your Cisco routers and switches. Let's get to work. Before I waste anyone's time, make sure that your Cisco switch is a managed switch. You can check this by looking up the SKU on Cisco's website. The switch that I'm going to be using for today's demonstration is the Cisco 1000 series Catalyst switch. I would also like to note that port 2 on the patch panel behind me is simply a Cat6 Ethernet pass-through that connects directly to the back of my Windows 10 PC. Port 24 provides a USB connection that also connects to the back of the PC. This is simply to streamline the process and keep things looking neat. Now that we have that out of the way, let's figure out how we want to connect to our router or switch. There are two common ways to connect to our device. The first option is going to be connected locally through a cable. The second option is going to be like some sort of remote connection. Both options may provide CLI or GUI access, but that's going to be dependent on the hardware and what that device supports. So now we can go over the types of cables that may be required for a local connection. Skylar, I'm going to let you have this one.
Thanks, Lane. There are a few different types of cables that you can use for this connection, but we shouldn't overcomplicate which cable to use because they will all give the same end result. If your computer has a RS-232 connector, not to be confused with a VGA port, you can use a RS-232 to RJ45 cable. Cisco usually provides this cable with most routers and switches, but we find it a bit outdated. Lane prefers the USB Type-A to RJ45 cable because of its USB interface. Let's also note that some Cisco devices have a mini USB port and you can connect to it via a simple USB Type-A to USB mini cable. You may be required to download the USB console driver beforehand. I'll paste the link to the official Cisco driver in the description. Finally, you can rig your own cable in a pinch. Lane has previously used a USB Type-A to RJ45 adapter that is then connected to an Ethernet cable. This should only be used as a last resort because it might cause reliability problems, additional configuration, and at worst, port failure. Just spend the $10 and buy the free
Okay, alright, thank you, Skyla. You are done here. Alright, sorry about that, guys.
You know it's true.
Let's talk about some software. For a local or serial connection, you'll require some type of terminal program to communicate between devices. I prefer the software called PuTTY because it's extremely lightweight and it's not overloaded with any sort of bloatware. Now go ahead and download your preferred program and let's move on to the next step. Make sure no devices are plugged into the router or switch, then feed power to your Cisco device. Typically, there's no on or off switch, so it should start booting as soon as it's plugged in. Once it is finished booting, go ahead and plug in your cable of choice into the console port of your router or switch. I'm going to be using the USB mini cable that's on the front of my Catalyst 1000 series switch. Now let's jump on the desktop and do some configuring. Go ahead and open PuTTY or whatever terminal program you want to use. I already have PuTTY installed, it's right here. And you're going to go to your connection type and choose serial. Remember, this is a local connection via the serial or USB cable on your computer. So the default settings that are already here in PuTTY might work for your router or switch, but let's still take a minute to verify what the settings are and how to configure those in case you need to. So I already did my homework. I'm just going to go ahead and open up Chrome here. So I just went to the Cisco website, looked up Catalyst 1000 series switch, and right here are the settings that we're looking for right here, these 5 items. So I'm going to minimize this, and here in PuTTY in the left hand column where it says serial, if you click that, you'll see those same settings right here. So we already know that the right values are plugged in here, but just in case they're not, or you need to connect to another device that uses different settings, at least you know how to do that now. And also keep in mind that PuTTY gives you the option to save these settings, and you can tie it to a specific name like the name of the switch or a different router and save them for future use. So keep that in mind. line. So the last thing that we need to look at though is what serial line our computer is using to connect to the device. I know for a fact that my computer is not on COM1. So how do you check? Well, let's open up Device Manager. So right here under ports, COM and LPT, I'm gonna hit that drop down. And right here it says COM6. Now, if there's multiple devices that you see here, no need to panic. You can either, the best option might be to just unplug all your unused USB or serial cables from the computer. Another one would be you can just simply try connecting to COM1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, until you connect to the right device. If I just right click and go to properties, I can also see that the manufacturer is Cisco. I'm confident that this is the right cable to use. So I'm going to click OK, go ahead and close out of Device Manager. So if I change serial line to COM6, I'm going to hit enter to open, and looks like we're in here. I'm just going to hit enter. Okay. All you have to do is just read through the prompt, and it's going to walk you through exactly what you need to do. So it's asking me if I would like to enter initial configuration dialog. Y for yes. Would you like to enter basic setup mode instead of extended setup? Yes. We can always go back to lock things down, but for the sake of this tutorial, let's just keep things moving forward. Enter a host name. I'm going to name mine the Catalyst 1000. You can name it whatever you want. Hit enter, and you can change this stuff later on too. So it's asking me to enter enable secret password. Put something in here that's not going to be easily guessed by a hacker or someone of that nature. For the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to keep things simple, but remember, this is where you want to be serious and you want to lock it down, okay? I'm going to type password, don't make fun of me. It's asking for the enable password. I'm pretty confident if I type the same password again, it won't work, and that makes total sense. I just want to show you guys, yes, correct. So it's saying to choose a password that is different from the encrypted password. So for the example, I'm just going to put password 1 though. And here we go, we're going to do it again, password 2, and this is for the virtual terminal password. It's asking me if I want to configure the SNMP network management. I'm just going to click no. Okay, so enter the interface name used to connect to the management network from the above interface summary. Let me just put VLAN 1. And I don't want to configure an IP yet. Remember guys, this tutorial right here is just to show you guys how to initially connect to your devices. We will later on go through how to lock them down, how to configure various settings and whatnot. But it looks like we have it right here. We just figured out how to connect to our Cisco router or switch via a local serial connection. So congratulations guys. If you're interested, let's take a look at how you connect to it initially and set it up through the GUI. To get started, go ahead and feed it some power, and once your router or switch has completely finished booting up, go ahead and run a Ethernet cable from your device to your laptop or PC. Now keep in mind, we are not plugging in our Ethernet cable into the console ports on these router or switches. We're accessing the GUI, the user interface. So you're gonna plug it into one of the ports on the front that you would plug in any other network device into. Also, do not plug in anything else until it's completely finished booting. Now you can navigate to your Cisco device's default configuration IP. Something else to keep in mind is your computer has to be on the same network as your router or switch in order to communicate with each other. It's worth noting again that my Catalyst switch acts as a DHCP server when it boots up. So that means that when it's booting up and it recognizes that my PC is connected and it's entering the initial configuration page, it's going to say, hey computer, I'm going to give you 10.0.0.1 with the prefix length of 24, go ahead and connect to me. Not all devices do that. A lot of them are just statically set, so you might have to go down here to your network settings. Now you can see I have 4 different NICs connected to my PC. I believe this one, yep, this is the one that I'm using to configure my switch with. Right here under IP assignment, you might not be able to leave it as DHCP like I did. You're gonna have to go to manual. Now, for example, if your switch says that it uses a IP address of 10.0.0.1, .1 or .3, go ahead and plug that in here. Now this is the IP address of my computer, so I'm going to hit .2. We don't want it to be the same IP address as the router. The prefix length, 255.255.255.0, that's going to be 24. And the gateway, so the gateway is going to be that router or switch. So I'm going to say .1, then you're going to click save. And then you'll be able to open up your browser. I'm just going to go to incognito, Control V, hit enter, and we are connected. Alright, so now you can navigate to your Cisco device's default configuration IP address. So just open up your browser of choice. Mine's Chrome. My switch uses a default IP address of 10.0.0.1 or .3. So I'm just going to hit paste, enter that in here. The default username and password is Cisco and Cisco. Now real quick, if your device does not use this IP scheme, that's okay. Just go to cisco.com and figure out which IP address you should be using for your specific router or switch. All right, and it looks like we're connected. So I'm gonna hit go to wizard. And guys, you can see that this is like super basic stuff. This is real easy when you have the interface in front of you. So host name, I'm just gonna label it exactly as I did in the CLI. Username, go with Lane. Password, they're gonna ask for a pretty complex password with alphanumeric, numbers, uppercase, lowercase. It's fairly complex, so go ahead and get something beefy in there. Got that. Clock looks synchronized. Now you can enable Secure Shell and Telnet. You can enable that stuff from here if you want, but since we're setting it up locally and then we're gonna enable some stuff later on, I would go ahead and just leave that stuff blank. Interface configuration, and it looks like this is where you can start giving it some IP addresses. You can give it an access port, a lot of great stuff. Now the stuff in the asterisk is obviously what you need to input in there, and looks good. Let's go to summary and submit. Okay, it's asking for my new credentials. So let's go ahead and do that. Hit sign in. All right, and we are in the GUI of this beautiful little Cisco Catalyst 1000 series switch. Wow, they did a really good job of the layout. I mean, this just looks so nice and clean and kind of minimal like. I really do like this. I think Cisco did a good job. So anyways, that is it. That is how you connect to your Cisco router or switch through the CLI or through the GUI. It's up to you how you want to connect to it, depending on the lineup of device or maybe even the firmware version of your router or switch that may give you limited or more access to some of these features. So just keep that in mind, that not every Cisco device gives you full functionality, full Cisco iOS, and all that good jazz. So that is everything I have for you all. Be sure to check the description down below for links to USB console driver on the Cisco side, products used in this video, and more. You can show your support to this channel by subscribing and hitting that like button down below if you enjoyed this video or learned something new from it. Also, please feel free to suggest video ideas down in the comment section, or let me know if you need help with anything and I'll get to it, alright? So thank you all again for tuning in to another episode of Cyber Nation. My name is Lane McCall, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.